guys, it's Charlie, and today we're reading Chapter 4 of Nancy Jones the Food Crew, Number 2, Scream for Ice Cream. Ice Cream Meltdown by Carolyn Keene, illustrated by Mackie Pamatu. Chapter 4 is called Supermarket Surprise. Let's start reading. How could it be stolen, Kendra? Nancy asked. The recipe was inside your head. I wrote on a piece of paper and brought it today, Kendra explained. I wanted Jim and Barry to autograph it. Kendra held up her backpack. She pointed to the back pocket and said, "It was in that pocket. Now it's gone." Deidre ran over with her camera. "Hi, Kendra," she said. "Do you want to pose for my camera?" Kendra stuck out her tongue and said, "How's that?" "Not cool," Deidre said. Deidre shook her head. "Neither was telling the world I had a winning recipe," Kendra said. "Now my recipe is stolen and I can't enter the contest." "Stolen? No way." "You can still enter the contest, Kendra," George said. "You know your recipe by heart, don't you?" "Big deal," Kendra asked. "The thief who stole my recipe will probably make the same ice cream." "What are you going to do?" Bess asked. "We have to find the robber before Saturday," Kendra said. "Before he or she enters the contest." "We?" Nancy repeated. "You are the Clue Crew, right?" Kendra asked. "Right," George said. "But Saturday is in 2 days." Nancy felt sorry for Kendra, and she didn't want Kendra and Deidre to fight. "We'll do it, Kendra," she said. "We'll help you find that creepy recipe thief." Kendra heaved a sigh of relief. "Thanks, you guys," she said. Deidre pointed at Nancy, Bess, and George. "Smile and say, 'The Clue Crew is on the case,'" she said. Each girl was giving to a thumbs up as Deidre took the picture. "Perfect," Deidre said as she ran off. Hannah honked her car horn as she drove up to the curb. Nancy, Bess, and George waved goodbye to Kendra as they climbed into the car. "I know you can do it," Kendra called as the car pulled away. "The Clue Crew rules." When they reached the Drew house, the girls had thundered up the stairs to their detective headquarters. Bess sat on Nancy's bed and bounced a stuffed unicorn on her lap. George sat at Nancy's desk and turned on the computer. Her eyes were glued to the screen as she began a new case file. "If this mystery is about ice cream," Bess said, "does that make it a cold case?" "No, Bess," Nancy said. "A cold case is a case that hasn't been solved. My dad told me that while we were watching a mystery show on TV. And we're going to solve this mystery," George said. "Files up. What do we know so far?" Nancy paced across her shaggy lavender carpet. "The person who stole Kendra's recipe is probably a kid," she said slowly. "Somebody who knew about the recipe and wants to win really bad. The Jim and Barry fan club wants to win badly," Bess said. "They said so themselves. And Daisy Dorfer was standing right behind Kendra in the sign-up line," Nancy remembered. "Daisy Dorfer," Nancy said as she typed. "Suspect number 1. Bess tossed the unicorn in the air. "Kevin Garcia asked about Kendra's recipe," she said. "What about him?" Kendra shook her head. "Why would Kendra enter a contest for something he can't eat?" she asked. "Especially since his parents would have to sign a permission slip if he won," George added. Next, the girls thought of all the things the thief would need to make Kendra's recipe. First up, chocolate, and lots of chocolate. "Speaking of ice cream," George said. She turned around in her chair. "I wonder how our flavor is doing." "Let's taste it," Bess said. "We already tasted it," Nancy said. George shrugged. "We didn't taste it after it was in the freezer for hours," she said. The girls raced out of Nancy's room and ran downstairs into the kitchen. Nancy opened the freezer and pulled out the ice cream container. As she pulled off the lid, woof! Chip jumped up against Nancy. She dropped the whole container on the floor with a thunk. "No!" Nancy cried. Vanilla ice cream and blueberries had spilled out onto the floor in big frozen clumps. The girls stared at Chimp lapping up the ice cream. "At least it wasn't chocolate," George sighed. "Chocolate isn't good for dogs." Nancy felt awful. If only she had held the container tighter. If only she wasn't such a klutz. "Now we have to make our ice cream all over again," Nancy said, "and that means buying more ingredients." Hannah came into the kitchen with a mop. I'll drive you to the supermarket, girls, she said, but I have a casserole in the oven. I'll call my mom, George said. She goes to the supermarket almost every day. Louis Fane owned her own catering company. She planned parties all over River Heights and even provided the food. To Nancy, Mrs. Fane's van always smelled like coleslaw and pickled tomatoes. I'm picking up fruit platters for Mayor Strong's birthday party this Saturday, Mrs. Fane said as she drove her van. It's going to be the party of the year. Nancy, Bess, and George sat behind Mrs. Fane. The seat behind them was filled with coleslaw containers. The seat behind them was filled with coleslaw containers. Why is Mayor Strong's birthday party the same day as the ice cream contest? Bess asked. That's how it worked out, Mrs. Fane said as she pulled the van into the supermarket parking lot. Once inside the supermarket, Nancy saw lots of other kids. Their baskets and shopping carts were filled with all kinds of food to make ice cream with. I have to go to the deli section, Mrs. Fane said. You can pick up your own items as long as you stay together and don't run. Nancy nodded. Shopping on her own always made them feel grown up. Mrs. Fane walked away. Nancy grabbed a red plastic shopping basket. While George unfolded their shopping list, Bess walked to the dairy section for a container of milk. After putting it in the basket, they looked for blueberries. Fruit is against the wall, she said. The healthy stuff is always against the walls. Bess started to run down the aisle. Last one there is a rotten watermelon, she called. Bess, wait, Nancy called. We're not supposed to run in the supermarket, remember? Nancy and George raced after Bess. When they all reached the end of the aisle, they sped around the corner. Wham! The girls slammed right into Kevin Garcia. Nancy had dropped her basket with the container of milk. Luckily, the milk didn't open and spill, but everything tumbled out of Kevin's basket. There was a box of chocolate ice cream pops, a package of chocolate-dipped ice cream cones, 2 cans of chocolate drink, 3 jumbo chocolate bars. Nancy stared at Kevin's packages on the floor. Kevin wasn't allowed to eat sweets. What was he doing with all this chocolatey stuff? Sorry, you guys, Bess said. Kevin muttered something under his breath. He picked up his packages and shoved them into his basket. Then he stood up and quickly walked away. Did you see that? George asked. I sure did, Nancy said, nodding. Kevin's basket was chock full of chocolate. Okay, guys, that's it. Chapter 5 is called Sticks and Cones. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell. Keep reading and keep dreaming. See you guys next video. Bye!